Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, hello and welcome to the show called The Truth Tribe. This is your host Ravi Tur, and today we are talking about policing, public service, community work, and everything in between with a very special guest from Calgary Police Service, Sergeant Paban Dhaliwal. Paban, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ravi, and ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, namaste, and thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure to have you here. Police services ਦੇ ਨਾਲ majority ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ career ਹੈ ਉਹ focus ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ community based policing and youth development ਉੱਤੇ. You were born and you were raised in Crow's Nest past, moving on to Calgary, grade 10 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਲਿੱਤੀ criminology ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ from Mount Royal University. You played a key role in organizing community events and fostering connections between the police service and Calgary's South Asian community. You have been named amongst the 20 compelling Calgarians in the year 2023. You've been awarded the Queen Elizabeth Platinum Jubilee Medal. You've also been given the Professional Leader Award in 2022 by South Asian Inspiration Awards. And you have been also nominated for the Community Justice Award by the Alberta Justice and Solicitor General in the year 2021. All that and much more. Apart from your duties, Paban, you're bridging the gap between the South Asian community and the Calgary Police, making policing more inclusive and community-driven. I'm super excited to chat with you, all that. But to start us off, in your words, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Paban Dhaliwal. Like you've mentioned, 20 years in policing now. So most of my life, I've been a police officer. And born and raised in Crow's Nest, Alberta, moved here in grade 10. And policing was always one of those careers that was on my mind from a very young age. So for me to get into policing was that next step. But it's been amazing. Like this has been one amazing career. It's been one of these careers where I've seen myself make a difference daily, monthly basis. I think first and foremost, I'm part of the South Asian community. I've got a family. I'm part of a family. I am a police officer by career, and I am a servant to the community.
That's wonderful to hear. So I thought for our session today, I figured we can start off from your initial days at the Mount Royal University when you were pursuing criminology. I would love to understand what sort of pursued your passion towards that and what sort of led your decision to take up criminology.
So that's a funny question because criminology, so I spent 5 years in Calgary Police recruiting, and I always tell other people, I go, criminology isn't necessarily the path to policing. We hire people from many different backgrounds. And for me, how I ended up at Mount Royal in the criminology program is when I was in high school here in Calgary, I was at James Fowler High School. I was talking to the career counselor and said, hey, I've always wanted to be a police officer. When I was in Crow's Nest Pass, I wanted to be an RCMP member. That's what we understood. That's what I saw. That's what was out there. But coming to Calgary in grade 10, I was at Crescent Heights. And then halfway through grade 11, I went to James Fowler High School. I got to know some of the school resource officers. I could still name them to this day. Not only those two schools, but other schools where my friends went to, Westerby Pearson. I wanted to be that police officer. Now, where I went was speaking to the guidance counselor and asked, I want to get into this career. What should my next steps be? And from that guidance counselor, it was like, you need to do criminology. You need to get into that field. My advice now is talk to police officers. If you want to be a police officer, talk to a police officer. No matter what career you want to get into, talk to people in that career. Because I did do my criminology at Mount Royal. But I also had other interests. And if I were to go back and do something different, maybe I would have done some other education, because later in life, especially with my 5 years in recruiting, I learned we need police officers from all different backgrounds, all different educational fields, all different types of life experience. We want to represent the community that we serve. So criminology isn't necessarily the only path to policing. It is one path, and it did help me get into this career, but it's not the only one.
That's very interesting. So my question to you then that is, when you moved into the policing world, into the front lines from criminology, what was the decision maker that you wanted to be in the front lines and do that? What sort of pursued that passion?
That passion was from when I was a kid. I remember growing up in the community village, our parents want us to be doctors, lawyers, engineers and stuff like that. And my parents, no different than anyone else, who convinced me into those careers and stuff. But I always came back to policing. So when I finished criminology, and that was my next step. My next step was to get into my dream career. I ended up applying, and the big thing for me with policing, it was to be a part of that community. And Calgary was important to me because Calgary Police Service was very focused on community building and community-based policing. Like I told you before, I knew the school resource officers. I know their names. They were very involved with the school at the time. That was my goal. Like coming into policing, my next goal in policing was to become a school resource officer, which I also achieved at one point there. But to help build that community and do better for that community. And with our religion and with our culture, we do seva, we do community service. That's a very important part of our culture and our background. And that's what I wanted to do with policing. I wanted to get into policing to serve our community.
Thanks for your service to the community, because you've been doing a great work on that front. So in your understanding, how has policing changed with in the last few years, with social media, with more awareness, with all the things that we have seen in the recent past, and how does that change your role within the community and in policing?
So my role becomes more important, right? Because we are judged by our weakest links, right? No matter where it happens. Now with social media, the world has gotten a lot smaller than it was a few years ago, or even when I was in high school. The world has become so small. So if a police officer makes a mistake elsewhere, we get blamed for that even here, right? So it's important for us to continue to make those positive relationships with the community, be within the community, have those tight-knit communities, and be part of that community, because without the community, we cannot do our job. We are part of that community, and for us to even solve crimes or get information or have witnesses and victims come forward, there needs to be trust. There needs to be a relationship. It's important for us to continue to work towards building positive relationships within the community and with every single community in our city, right? And even our outlining areas, because Calgary itself is a city, but there's so many communities outside of Calgary where they live and work and socialize within the city. We need those positive relationships there too, right?
Absolutely. Pavan, my next question है, just in the day in the life of a police officer, ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ explain ਕਰਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਦਿਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ as a police officer ਕੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋ, what will be that breakdown like?
It's difficult because every day is different.
Yeah.
You don't come to work, you're not coming in bookkeeping, right? And you're doing the same thing and you're doing the same equations and you're doing the same different things. Every day is different. And I'm going to start with patrols because we all start as patrol officers. We go to, let's go back a little bit. I'm going to start at recruit. Recruits get hired. They come to police training. So here in Calgary, we do training in-house. So in our buildings, we have different training buildings within Calgary where we do that. And every day is different. So you're either in the classroom learning laws, you're learning the book stuff, right? You're understanding what policing is, or you're out on what we call our track, and you're learning to drive in emergency situations and how to stop and how to deal with emergency situations with vehicles when you have offenders with, say, weapons or things like that. We're learning different things. How to do a traffic stop. We're learning that. We're going out to the range. We're practicing with our firearms and stuff like that. We're in a gym practicing things that like we call subject control tactics and stuff like that. Some of the different ways to be in control if there's a fight or if someone attacks, or how to handcuff people. Even in recruit classes, every day is different. Every day we're doing something different. We're doing fitness. We're doing something different, but we're learning those basics of policing. Then we go into the field and we go into patrol. And patrol is a whole different thing because it depends on what's happening that day. Some days we're out in the community talking to the community. We're reading books to kids. Other days we're arresting people. We're dealing with robberies. We're dealing with stolen vehicles. We have foot chases. We've got our Hawks helicopters helping us on calls and stuff like that, break and enter stuff, depending on that day. So you can't come into work and go, this is what is going to happen today, because today can be very different, right? But then we also have our officers in our support roles and our investigative roles that are doing different things as well. They're investigating offenses. Some of them specialize in, say, homicide, sexual abuse, child abuse, and stuff like that. So all of their files are in that, and they become specialized in those areas. We've got our tactical officers, our canine officers that are very specialized in their fields as well. And they're always learning. There's lots of learning that happens in policing, and we learn from other agencies. We learn internally. We learn from all over the place. Now with the way the world is, and I can imagine that we're going to be doing online courses. Now we got online, we got in-person courses, we got all sorts of stuff. That's why that question is so difficult. What's a day in the life of a police officer? Because it's so different. And when people think of police, they usually think of our patrol officers, our officers that are out in the community and stuff like that. And every day, I can't think of 2 days that were exactly the same for me. Some things might overlap for sure, but not everything. There's so many different things that will happen because we're dealing with different things. And then also for our members have their own interests. They want to do different things. Say a member from patrol is interested in the canine unit. They might go help canine train. For me, like in the beginning, my interest was to go into school resource. So what I used to do is when there was a little bit of downtime or when I had the ability, I would go and I'd visit schools and I would talk to the schools and talk to the principals and see what was going on. I also started some after school programs in schools and things like that. And it just helped me build that community with the school board, build that community with the students, teachers, parents, everybody in there, just so I can, again, go forward with my career because that was my interest. But that day in my life was going to be very different than another officer that isn't interested in things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of why I asked you this question. If you have to rate top 3 challenges of the people of Calgary today, what would those be and how do you help navigate around them?
It's difficult to put it on me, but safety is always has been a challenge, right? We need to deal with our safety within Calgary. The biggest thing is, again, goes back to those relationships. If we don't have the information, we can't act on it, right? Sometimes community doesn't give us that information. Sometimes because they think someone else will do it, or they think it's not their role, or they don't want to overstep their boundaries, or they'll ignore it because they think nothing's going to be done of it. But if we don't have the stats and we don't have the information coming to us, we don't sometimes know what the issues are because we can't be everywhere. Our community, the relationships we make in our community and our citizens here are our ears and our eyes. They see and they hear things, but we need to get that information back. So there's always concerns when it comes to public safety. There's always concerns when it comes to, say, traffic, things like that. So there's a list of things that are priority for every police service in every city.
Let's talk about a situation that you are the most proud of in your policing career. Can you think about a particular instance where you helped a youth or a family, or what that situation was like? What was the outcome of it, and how did that make you feel?
What I'm most proud of is, again, that work within that community, because my time in school resource, I could start at that. So my time in school resource, I made many positive relationships. I helped start the wrestling program at the school that I was assigned to. But where I'm proud isn't so much at that time, it's in the future. It's now, because now I see these youth from back then, now adults that are involved in different situations, and they come up to me and say, hey, because of you, I got involved in this or that. Because of you, and you being at our school, I've become this, or I want to do this for the community. Even a lot of our volunteers that volunteer with me at, say, Kids Play and things like that are there because of the relationships I built with them when they were youth. Even some of them, I'll give you one example. I had a young man who was a larger kid in high school, and by larger, like, he was fit. He was big, he was tall, he was really fit in high school, and he got in a little bit of trouble in high school. And I worked with his probation officers at the time when he got in trouble because I knew he had a little bit of interest in the wrestling program. So what I did is I brought him into the wrestling program, and he was able to help me there and get some community service hours. And then once high school was done for him, he went back to the old friends and the friends that he was getting in trouble with. But then I ran into him many years later, and he approached me and said, "Hey, you know what, Dolly, you're right." And I was like, "Okay, what are you talking about? What was I right about?" He goes, "We had those conversations and you talked to me about how these friends were using me, and a lot was to do with his size. They were using him for enforcement for them, right? You talked to me about that, and at some point in his life, he realized that's what was happening with him. It was at a point where his friends, or quote unquote friends, started to get bigger. They had no use for him anymore, so they turned on him. So it was that later piece where he approached me, says, "This is what it is. This is where I am in life." And then I saw him again, and he was very proud of where he was in life and his new job and how he got to his new job. And he did really say that, like, it's because of the relationship that I had with him, even though we hadn't met in many years, but the communication and the conversations that we had, that he had decided that he was going to take that right path, and now is successful, and he's in sales, and he's very successful in sales. But you can't really measure that success because it happens so much later. I've had others. I had one actually two that I helped with coaching wrestling that came and helped with some of our programs. And I said two, and then I remember there's a third as well, but there's several that come back, and they want to be a part of that community, and they want to give back to that community. And it's because of what happened a decade plus ago. Those conversations, that relationship building, those conversations that happened back then that have an impact today, that is paying it forward, that they're going out to their own communities, they're doing their own programs, they're out there doing different things because they were inspired by me being out there and helping out and helping develop positive things in the community.
That's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure you've had impact not just on these 3 or 4 people, but many more. So thanks for that. My question to you on that piece is, and this is more so around the South Asian community and understanding the dynamics there. We get to hear a lot of times that South Asian youth particularly has been involved in gangs and drugs and violence and things, so on and so forth. You just shared a few examples where you have helped youth who were going down maybe that path. Where do you think the disconnect happens between the youth and the family and the community that they end up on this path of wrongdoings? And what can we do as a society to...
A lot of times what happens is their involvement. What are they involved in? What are they looking for? When they get involved into these type of things, what are they looking for? They're looking for that sense of belonging. They're looking for that family. They're looking for what they're going to get involved in, where they have people around them. Our community, my parents immigrated here in the 70s. They're busy making a life here in Canada.
Correct. Yeah.
So they weren't around as much as the others can be and stuff like that. So I think what happens is we need that relationship, right? If that relationship's not there, we don't know what our youth are getting involved in. A lot of times we get to this point where the needs and wants get mixed up, right? A family is here and they want a lot more. But to get that lot more, they're busy with work, they're busy with other things, and there's not so much happening with the youth. I always say with youth, we need to get youth involved in something. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter if it's sports, it doesn't matter if it's arts, if it doesn't matter what it is, but give them that sense of belonging and something positive. If they're part of a group, a part of something that is positive that they can belong to, and they feel that sense of someone around them with positive attitudes. And it's not fair to say that all parents have that opportunity to be there all the time, because people are doing different things. But even in our community, why did our families come here? Why do our families do what they do? And for the most part, in our community, our families do things for a better life for their future generations. Not so much for them, but more so for godly beauty,
Yeah.
right? The next generation is what they're doing. There's that big connection. Know what your kids are into, right? Don't ignore signs. Don't ignore different things. If they're coming home with things that they can't afford, they've got vehicles. They're telling you they're working at, say, fast food or something like that, but they're coming home with more money than that. Where's that coming from? Have those open conversations. Have those, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of what's happening, what's going on, especially when it comes to money, clothing, vehicles. Who are their friends? Get to know their friends. Get to know their friends' parents, right? A lot of times within our community, you might know the friend, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of times you don't know the parents. You don't know who they're hanging out with. You don't know who they're with at whatever time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots more we can do to keep that open communication, be understanding. I remember when I was in school resource, and I had a dad come into the office once and pretty much tell me that his kid is making poor choices because of the color of his hair and the haircut he had. And I told that dad, I go, look, haircuts and hair dye, that all goes away. Let's focus on that youth. Let's focus on where they are and what we can do to improve them as a student and improve them and their future. The other issue that I remember from my school resource time is that sometimes our families don't want to, or don't, I wouldn't say trust, but don't understand the systems out there. Sometimes there's learning disadvantages that our youth have, and the school's trying to work with the families to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it translates into Punjabi or in another language, it seems worse than it is. But in reality, we're just trying to help that youth achieve the goals and get the skills and the tools to move forward, skills and tools to be successful. So if we don't take advantage of some of those programs and some of those things that are being offered, it's at a disadvantage for our youth. And then again, they're going to places where they feel they fit in. They feel that this is going to be an advantage for them, right? Whereas we need to be, as a community and as family members, we need to be that support. We need to be that community, and we need to help them get into positive communities, right? And that's where a lot of times we talk about sports, right? And we talk about different things, because that becomes a community. Sports becomes a community. They're in drama and they're doing plays. That becomes a community, right? That becomes their social network and their family, right? So as long as there's positive around them, they're going to do positive, right? You've probably heard we're a mix of the 5 people that are around us, right? So as long as those 5 people, or majority of those 5 people, are positive, that's a good direction, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I loved your outlook on it. And it really, I've spoken to a few others on this show, and I find the theme is exactly where you defined it, is that acceptance piece. Is when you don't feel accepted in your household, in your communities, is when you seek this acceptance elsewhere. And usually, my next question to you is around those youth or those people who are on the fence and want to maybe take policing as a career? Where do they start? What are some good resources to look? And what is your advice to get started in it?
Yeah, there's so much opportunity in policing right now, right? And being a Calgary police officer, I'm always going to be a recruiter for Calgary, but understandably, there's policing options everywhere, right? Where to start? Go to that agency. Go to their website. If it's Calgary, come see our website. See what the information is there. Talk to someone in that career. It doesn't mean if you want to be a police officer elsewhere, say you live in Calgary, but you want to be a Toronto police officer. It's hard to get to talk to a Toronto police officer, but understand the basics. Talk to a police officer here in Calgary. Most agencies have information sessions. They'll tell you what you need, how to get there. Our websites are all going to have that. You take, for example, Alberta, and in Alberta and other provinces, all the agencies have the same hiring standards and the same steps in the hiring process. Information that's on Calgary Police's website might be different than what's on Edmonton Police's website, but the more information you have, so our job is to investigate. And I used to tell applicants when I was in recruiting all the time, investigate. Go out there and learn, right? Go look at Tabor Police's website. You might not have any interest in Tabor Police. It's an Alberta police agency. See what they say on their website to prepare for your written testing, to prepare for your physical testing, to prepare for whatever it is in that process. There's lots of different options out there. First step, go to that place. Next thing I always say is know where you want to go, right? Because police agencies all across Canada are hiring right now. Apply to where you want to be. For me, like I told you before, growing up in Crozes Pass, I wanted to be a Mountie. I wanted to be in the RCMP because that's what I knew. When I went to Mount Royal, I realized that I didn't want to move different places. I wanted to be settled. My fiance at the time was doing her accounting degree. I knew that the glass ceiling for her is much bigger in a major city, right? So I turned my view to municipal policing, looking at agencies in Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, looking in Lower Mainland, and even considering in GTA. But I always wanted to be in Calgary. One thing I advise people now, which is opposite of what I did, is apply for the agency that you want to be at first. Right?
Interesting.
I applied everywhere else. The last one I applied to was Calgary, and thankfully this is what worked out for me because I've had a great career here in Calgary. And plus it's been like home for me and my family. But it's funny because with this experience, and like I said before, with criminology, with the experience that I have now, some of my advice is opposite of what I have done, right? But that comes from experience. So yeah, so think about where you want to be. But that also made me think about even before you're even there. When you're, say, if you're in high school, you're in junior high school, you're grade 9, 10, 11, 12, and you're thinking about this career. Again, talk to police officers, see what you want to do. Sometimes I tell youth, I'm like, have a backup plan. See what else you like, right? The shift schedules we work 4 on, 4 off for patrol. And some of our members who are carpenters, plumbers, and trades, on their days off, they'll go do something in their old field, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that opportunity as well. But also, it doesn't matter if you want to do a trade, you want to get your doctorate in something, if you want to do whatever interests you, do that. For policing, the more education you have, no one can take that education away from you. Even though our minimum standard is high school diploma, many of our applicants come with post-secondary experience. Many of our applicants come with life experience where they've volunteered elsewhere or they've done different things. So that's what you're competing against. So come here competitive. Come with different areas of the service. Come with different backgrounds. Come with different career paths, because that's what our community is. Our community isn't all security guard to police officer to this. And speaking of security guard, a lot of people feel that security guards are this next step to policing. Yes, if you're in a field or if you have a placement where you're talking to people, you have some sort of customer service. No, if you are night security at a warehouse where you don't see anything, you just drive around and check locks because you're not talking to people. A big part of our job is community service. So
Absolutely.
people who work retail, people who work in fast food, they do come with great experience. So there's so many different things that can bring you to policing. There's so many paths that it's hard to explain which path. But again, like I said, talk to people that are in the career, go to the websites, go to the information sessions. If you have the opportunity, go on ride-alongs, go to police service and ask if you can come see a ride-along where you can go with a police officer for the day. So there's so much that can be done and take advantage of some of the programs. Like here in Calgary, we have things like Run with a Recruiter where we help people get to their fitness goals. We have prep workshops for people who are going into their interviews. So there's lots of help available within the organizations to help you achieve that goal into policing. But again, there's no straightforward, you need to do A, B, Z, C, D. When you become a CPA, you go to school, you go write your exams and then go that direction. So there's a path that
Correct.
gets you to that career or that profession. We don't have that path, right? That path doesn't really exist. But the other thing is to be good because we do criminal background checks, right? We want to make sure you've lived a clean life and you haven't been involved in any detected or undetected criminal behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do security background. We want to know who you're hanging out with, right? Because you can't be friends with the criminal element and then want to be a police officer because there's
Hope not.
chances of corruption and all sorts of things there, right? So there's lots of things that can bring you into policing. For me, I'm going on to this will be 20 years in November. It's been a great career. I've had amazing opportunities. I've worked in different areas. Like I said, after recruit class, we go to patrol. From patrol, I worked with community resource in Northeast Calgary, which is a very diverse part of our city. From there, I went to school resource, went back to patrol, went into our diversity resource team where I worked with predominantly with the South Asian community, went into recruiting, as I mentioned before, came out of recruiting, went to work patrol in a different part of the city, got promoted, and when I came back to the Northeast District 5, right now I'm doing a short term in the Office of the Chief. So there's lots of different things that could happen. And our careers are like snowflakes because they're not the same. So the person that was in classes with me doesn't have the same career path as me. In fact, when I was in District 2, which is on the west side of the city, and for people in Calgary, it's by the Bar La Gordora, right? That area of the city it was very different. But when I was there, I was working with a classmate of mine, and our regimental numbers, which are badge numbers, our numbers are one number apart. And he came from a very different background. He was from TAC. He did a lot of the operational stuff, whereas I did a lot of the community and youth stuff. Even though you come into policing, when you come into policing, your career can be very different. There's so many different ways to go. I know typically out there, people change careers every couple of years, 4, 5, 6 years. You're going into a different career, going to a different company. Here, we have that opportunity with different units coming back to different areas of the city. But it's been amazing career for sure. There's been a lot of great opportunities that I've had, and it felt like every time a door shut, another one opened, right?
That's interesting. So my question to you on just that piece where you ended, in this career of yours over 20 years, how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up later for success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
So yeah, you know what? And at the time, they're horrible, right? At the time, failures are horrible. Like I didn't get that opportunity here. I didn't get that chance. I didn't get to that unit. I didn't get promoted. I didn't get this, right? At the time, this is horrible. But in hindsight, you look at it and you look at, especially for me, these opportunities presented themselves after a failure, or after, sometimes it wasn't even a failure, but after a certain thing happened, right? Like going back to patrol from school resource for me was one of those things that I did because I wanted to move forward and get promoted. But then I find out our family's growing and I go, okay, I'm going from day shift to shift work. And then the opportunity at diversity opens up, right? And while I'm in diversity, I'm working with the South Asian community. The pressure's on both sides because I'm part of that community. I'm a member of the South Asian community and I'm also a member of the police service. So the pressure's up from both sides. And burnout, and okay, there's things that are happening. The opportunity for recruiting opened up. I wasn't interested at recruiting at that time, but what I felt that I would go into recruiting later in my career, not that early in my career, but all the stars aligned and that opportunity presented itself. And I jumped into that opportunity, walked in that door per se, because that opportunity was there. Some of these happened because something else didn't happen, or something happened. So there's sometimes it's not a plan, right? So some stuff's linear, and some stuff's, yeah, if I do this, I'm going to do this. If I do this, I'm going to do this. Like the first time I applied for school resource, I didn't get it. I was junior and I wasn't expecting it because I knew who was applying, but I wanted to show interest and I applied. And when I didn't get it, my boss, my sergeant at the time, offered me the community resource spot, which I didn't want, which was one of those, no, I enjoy my time working patrol. But after a conversation with him, I decided to work in community resource, and it was a great opportunity. And it was one of those units where I was able to do so much in a short period of time to help build that community, which I would have missed if I would have got selected as a school resource officer at the time, or if I would have went, no, it's not my cup of tea. That's not what I want to do. But that door opened for me without me even knowing how impactful and how positive that was going to be for me.
Very cool. And part of why I asked this question is a lot of time from the outside looking in, we look at this success story and be like, oh, it's a linear trajectory. But as you said, there's so many ups and downs. And what I find is a consistent theme is that persistence, and then that consistency to the actual cause, and just staying true to that. And then over the course of time, through your ups and downs, you get to be where you're supposed to be. So love that piece. Thank you for sharing that. Just to switch gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about your background. You were born and raised up in a small town, then you moved to Calgary. How was that upbringing? Now you're a father. How has times changed in your understanding of it?
Yeah, and we mentioned a couple of times, born and raised in a small town. The way we ended up there is my dad's chacha, who is Indian Army fighter pilot. He came here. He's highly educated. He started working in the coal mines just on the other side of the Alberta-BC border, even though we lived in Alberta. From there, he sponsored my dad, who was the oldest nephew for him. And that's what started bringing our family over. A lot of my family, both my mom's side and my dad's side, worked in the mines out there, and we had this very, very small but very tight network of family members that started there, and eventually everybody started going elsewhere. A lot of our family ended up in Lower Mainland, some in the Greater Toronto area. But there's a small portion of us that stayed in Crow's Pass. And then once the mines started shutting down and stuff like that, we ended up here in Calgary. But even in between, I lived in Abbotsford, BC for a year, right? So for me, one of the funny stories I always share is for 3 years in a row, I was in first year high school, but I never failed a grade, because in grade 8, I was in Abbotsford. Grade 9, I came back to Crow's Pass. In grade 10, I was here in Calgary. So that was an interesting experience too, because as many people know, when you go from being the highest grade in your school to now being at the bottom of your school. It's a transition. It's a big transition period. And I know we're doing this interview on first day of school. I don't know when you'll air it, but it's one of these big transitions, going into a new school. And now you were the top dog at your elementary school, and now you're at the bottom of the barrel in junior high, and that happens again from junior high to high school. So I got to experience that 3 times. I've came out here to Calgary, and it's coming from a small town to a big city was quite the change. But for me, it was probably one of the better things that happened to me, because in that small town, I had a small friend circle who weren't the greatest, right? In fact, years later, someone from my friend circle is one of our targets that we're investigating. I lost contact with them years ago, but the influences there weren't positive. They weren't the greatest. And then I come here, I set goals for myself. I want to be a police officer. I want to do good in this world. And as I'm going through high school, I have those goals in the back of my mind. And the reason I went between schools is because at Crescent Heights, I ended up getting to a fight with one of my people from my friend group, because I was friendly with a lot of people. Like, I knew a lot of people. I talked to a lot of people. But my one friend didn't like another friend of mine, and it basically said, hey, if you're friends with him, you're not friends with me. And that got into a shouting match. And thankfully for me, the school resource officer happened to be there, and he pulled me aside, and we had that conversation. And he goes, what do you want to do in your life? And I'm like, okay, I want to be a police officer. He goes, how do you think this will help you become a police officer? I go, it won't. So it was one of those things that goal setting piece became important, because I'm like, okay, what's going to help me achieve where I want to be? So that's where I made that decision to go to another school and get away from those influences. And then again, at the time, Fowler wasn't considered one of the best schools in Calgary. Is actually considered to be one of the worst schools at the time. But I went there and I succeeded, and I was able to complete school without getting in trouble, without getting involved in any of that kind of stuff, because I made that choice of my goals were more important than these little issues and these little arguments and fights and stuff like that. But yeah, no, it was coming to a big city from a small town, learning busing, learning different things. In Crow's Nest, there wasn't groups of people, groups of friends. And here, and coming here and going, okay, this group doesn't like this group, like it was foreign to me. It was okay. Everybody talked to everyone, because you really didn't have much. Yeah, people got into fights with one another, but there wasn't groups. And here it was in groups sort of thing. And I maintained that same attitude of let's be friendly to people, let's talk to people. I'm not gonna, because someone doesn't like someone, I'm not gonna be rude about it, and I'm not gonna be like, that's not gonna impact what my perception is. Well, yeah, that was a big thing coming here. And then obviously college life is always another different thing, right? You go from high school to university, college. I think everybody that does that step realizes that's a big step. That's a big step. So I don't think that's anything different, because I was already in the city. But yeah, no, it was growing up. It was great. And it's nice to see that even from our small towns, South Asian community that have come from those towns. And for us, because Crow's Nest Pass and Coleman was so close to Sparwood, Oxford, Fernie, all those families were always tight knit because they had something in common, and they are to today, right? And we still see each other, and we still talk to each other. And it's nice to see that people have moved forward and have been successful coming from those small towns.
Absolutely. So question on that, and you've touched on it a few times, but just if I have to ask you again, knowing everything that you know about life today and gaining all the experience that you have over the past so many years, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? What would you tell a 20-year-old Paban Dhaliwal, knowing everything that you know right now about life?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'd be like, keep focusing on those goals. Whatever you're doing, make sure you're doing to help you achieve whatever goals that you want to achieve. For me, we'll go back to the policing career. If I'm telling myself, hey, you want to be a police officer? I'd be like, okay, go talk to a police officer. Go learn what it takes to become a police officer. Look at different places to get education and look at different skill sets, different things that you can do. Be patient. A failure is not a failure. Sometimes there's setbacks, but those setbacks make you stronger and make you sometimes more competitive. They build your character, right? And they help you achieve other things. And sometimes from those failures are other opportunities that you will never have thought about or never have had in the past, or even, yeah, like I said, never thought about, or these opportunities come or hidden, or these gems that are going to help you succeed later on. So there's, yeah, so much. Be patient is a big thing, right? Be patient, do good. Big thing is the save up piece, right? Getting out there and building community and helping community. I think even from a young age, it's do more of that. Do more of that because, yeah, I know sometimes we get stuck on this. We want to make money. We want to make money. We want to make money. But that inspiration and that feeling of actually helping their community is worth way more than any money out there.
Yeah, yeah. I echo the same, what you've just said. It's that selfless service. That's what Seva is all about. My question to you, and this is around your personal routine and how do you go about your days? Policing is not a bed of roses, as we all know, right? So you
Right.
encounter a lot of different situations, difficult situations, talk about situations that people normally wouldn't, right? So how do you stay mentally sort of sane and focused and not let that push you in your personal life? How do you draw that line and stay mentally fit? Are there any practices, frameworks that you have in your day for that?
Yeah, there's so much, right? For me, it's just getting out there, being physically involved in different things. I remember one of the most stressful times I had in this career. I hadn't played dole in years. Like it had been good, like 15 years plus. And I was going through a very stressful time at work. And I decided that I was going to not only take my tools out of their storage area, but also strip them right down, sand them right down, refinish them, and start playing again. I'm not at the level I was before, but just that opportunity to be playing something, be playing music. I've been involved in throughout my life. I was involved in different combative arts, mixed martial arts, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, hapkido, all that kind of stuff. That also helps. So just right now, walks are my favorite thing, getting out there with our police service and a lot of different police services. There's lots of help that's available. We have things like psych services. We have things like peer support. So there's lots of things out there that is available. For me, when I started with policing back in 2003, there's probably a handful of us, maybe six South Asian members. Probably half of us worked with the community, did community things. Now we're up to 30, 40 from our community and different communities. So for me, I'm well connected with a lot of them. So we have those conversations. We touch base with each other. We talk to each other because one thing is there's policing culture, but there's also the South Asian culture in us, right? So having those supports with our own members and members from the South Asian community is helpful. Having that ability to have those conversations, pick up the phone, send a text message and see how people are doing or they're checking in on you is huge. So there's lots. I'm a yo-yo when it comes to fitness. So sometimes I'm like really into fitness and other times, no, we're not quite there, but I try to, that minimum level of fitness is always there, right? Sometimes I get really into it and other times I'm still working out, but I'm not to the level that I can be, right? Yeah, for me, coaching and mentoring helps, like me helping others helps me because for me, the person that I'm helping, their success is my success. If they can be successful, it helps me and it builds me and it helps me be successful. With the experience and the years of service I bring, I share that experience with others and try to help them navigate their own journeys, right?
Thanks for that. So, question to you on that. If you can put a message on a billboard in Canada for the entire country to see, what would you put on that billboard?
Oh, you see. Oh,
It could be a quote that you live by, could be that too.
yeah. I think, yeah, the big thing is believing in yourself, but also do what makes you happy.
Perfect. And my next question is around, do you have a favorite book or your most favorite book or a documentary that you would recommend others?
I've read autobiographies are my favorite, but I like the stranger ones. Mick Foley. I don't know if you know Mick
Yeah,
Foley, but
the
definitely
WWE.
WWE.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really enjoyed his book for some reason.
Interesting.
his first one, right?
What
So
did you
it's
like about the
like
book? Would you
like
say?
like it's just someone doing things like coming out of nowhere, right? Like
Mhm.
he's not a. If you look at Mick Foley, he's not a person that you would think like in today's wrestling world would come that, but overcoming all these obstacles and becoming what he is now. So things like that kind of inspiring me is anything where people are overcoming challenges and people are overcoming opportunities or I guess disadvantages and stuff and succeeding
Mhm.
and because they can, because if you put your energy into it, you can get there.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big WWE fan and I love reading autobiographies. Thanks for sharing, because I'm going to jump on that one for sure. Paban, if I have to ask you, what does the future hold for you? What does the next few years look like? Do you have anything in the works? What would that be?
Yeah, you know what? Like we talked about before, it's sometimes those doors open and you walk through them, and other times doors close on you. For me, right now, I'm going to be back working in Northeast Calgary. I'm excited to be out there being part of that community. I'm going to continue to volunteer with the community. My big thing is help others be successful. For myself, career goals are they're changing right now.
Mhm.
There's so much opportunity within our career and that I can get involved in different areas of the service. I can go for another promotion. I can do so many different things within Calgary Police, which is huge. But the other thing is, as we mentioned before, I've got 20 years with Calgary Police, right? We're eligible to retire after 25.
Okay.
I started fairly young, so I can definitely retire and start a new career. Or I could stick around for a few years. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made for me in the next little while. And there'll be a lot of decisions, a lot of opportunities. For me, it's again one day at a time. We'll see where life takes me. Because I found out early in my career if you're too focused on going one direction, you're gonna think all these other you could call gifts or all these other doors that are opening aren't worth it. But
Mhm.
until you walk in that door, you can't see the gems that are behind that door. So it's one of those, again, difficult to answer because I don't know where I'll be in the next 5 years, 2, 3 years even. Right now, like I said, I'm returning back to patrol. I'm going to enjoy my time there as I was before. Right now, I'm doing shift work. Again, we look at health as well, right?
Mhm.
Shift work isn't easy on us, right? The shift work is difficult. So I got to watch my health and kind of go, okay, is shift work working for me? It was 4 or 5 months ago for sure when I was doing shift work and going back to shift work. So we got the different choices depending on where life is, depending on where health is, depending on where my kids are, depending on where the opportunities are. The other thing is if I rush to say getting promoted, I miss different opportunities,
Mhm.
right? Like as a constable within Calgary Police Service, you have more opportunities and they get less and less as you go up that chain of command.
Mhm.
So now that I've been promoted to sergeant, I have less opportunities than a constable. However, I still have opportunities and I still have places to go. So it's hard to say where my future is going to be, but a couple things for sure. I'm still here working with the community. I'm still going to be out there volunteering with the community. I'm still going to be helping mentor the next generation, and not all of them are going to be police officers. Some of them go into other career paths and some aren't successful when they come through the policing process. And that's not a bad thing. That just, you know what, it's not your time. Maybe it's not the career for you. Even in my time in recruiting, some of the people that will come back and be appreciative of things or people that I've deferred and haven't given a job to because they realize that this wasn't their calling, right? Like I know
Yeah.
one person became a medic with Calgary or Alberta Health Services, sorry. And they realize that there's something else. But that goes back to that same conversation. The door shut for them, but another one opened, right?
Mhm.
So it's one of those things. Yeah, I can't say where I'll be in 5 years because 5 years ago, I can say to you that, yeah, in 5 years, I'd be sitting working as an executive liaison officer in the chief's office, right?
Absolutely.
That wasn't, I wouldn't be able to say that to you. And years before that, I wouldn't be able to say, you know what, I'm going to be working as a patrol sergeant in District 5 back where I started back in Northeast Calgary with a community that I love working with.
Yeah, 100%. A lot can change in 5 years. A lot can change in 5 months. So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you on that. We wouldn't be able to conduct something like this 5 years ago. Absolutely no chance of that. So thanks for sharing that. Pavan, it's been an absolute blast, a pleasure of mine to just sit down with you here today, talk to you about your experiences, your life challenges. And I'm confident that anybody who is listening here today would be able to take some actionable bits into their lives and make a difference. And if we can make a difference in one person's life, I would say our goal here is achieved. Before I let you go, any final words, any parting thoughts from your end?
Hit the nail on the head there, right? I remember when I sat in my recruit interview, this was 2003, and I sat in front of this panel and we had the formal part of the interview. And after the interview, they come back, I leave the room and they decide if I passed the interview or not. And then they bring me back. And so they bring me back and they asked me a couple questions and they asked me, what do you feel a successful career with the Calgary Police Service would be for you? And my exact answer, and you almost said it word for word, my exact answer was, if I can make a positive difference in one person's life, I will have a successful career. For me, it's happened hundreds, thousands of times over now, which is just amazing and one of the proudest things that I can say. But big parting words for me is follow your dreams, achieve what you want, listen to people, listen to the people that are in those career paths, and don't assume that there's one way to achieving a career that you want to achieve. Talk to people that are in that role is the big thing, and be out there and make a positive difference. Make a positive difference to your life and in others' lives. That itself is so rewarding that in the end of the day, there's no better feeling than making those positive difference. And sometimes those impacts aren't felt for years, decades later. I always say in policing, I'm one of the lucky ones because all of us, all of our police officers, all the members, whether it's Calgary Police or throughout the world, everybody makes a positive difference, but not everybody gets to see that difference that's been made. I've been lucky because I've worked in roles with community, with youth that has come up to me. Being South Asian, being part of the South Asian community on days off, or I'm at an event, I'm at a wedding party or something like that, I've had people come up to me and say, thanks for this, or we appreciated this. I'm at the mall. Yeah, I've had people, but that's because of the roles I had. Some of our members don't get to be in those roles and don't have the same experiences because they've only met someone who once made that positive difference in that person's life that one time that they met them, and we'll never see them again. Whereas because I've worked in those community roles, I get to see some of that. And plus, because I've worked in the South Asian community, as the South Asian community is so small that you see people, and it's so small that I even see people in BC or I see people in Ontario that come up to me and say, hey, you know, I remember you from this, or my cousin knows you from XYZ, right?
Yeah, I think as civilians, all of us could not thank every police officer within Canada for the selfless service that you guys do. You truly are representing the community in a great way, and we're really proud of you. And hopefully there'll be many others like you who would take this thought after listening to our conversation today. So keep doing what you're doing. Good luck with everything that comes in your future, Papan. Thanks again for your time today.
Awesome. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you for for having me on your show, and I really appreciate you putting out all the content that you're putting out.
Thank you again.